Welcome back to Buddy Makes. My name is Callie and today we are going to be making apple pie. So this apple pie is the perfect dessert to put at your holiday table this year. It is absolutely incredible. I have a few kind of secret ingredients that really take it above and beyond, and I know you're going to love it. So let's get right into it. But before we begin, as always, please remember to subscribe, like, share, chat in the comment section, and follow me on social media for more recipes and additional content. So let's get right into it. These are the ingredients that we are going to be using. I have some apples that I have peeled, cored, and I sliced thinly, like so. I have a lemon or orange. I have a combination of spices. I'm using cinnamon, nutmeg, ground cloves, ground allspice, really any kind of thing pumpkin pie spices will work. So cardamom, ginger, whatever you have, whatever you like. I have a little bit of vanilla extract along with a little bit of almond extract. The almond extract is optional. It does add a nice kind of unique flavor to this recipe, but if you don't have it, you don't have to add it. It's totally optional. I have some flour, brown sugar, salt, and that is it for now. We'll talk about the pie dough momentarily, but let's get right into it. Oh, and we have some butter. We have butter. And the butter, what we're gonna do is we are going to brown it, which I will go over in 1 second. But first, what we're gonna do is add the lemon juice to the apples. As you can see, I'm not measuring it. It's just about half a lemon will do. This is just gonna kind of help ensure that the apples don't brown too much. And I think a nice little pop of citrus goes well with a very kind of heavily spiced dessert like this. So a little bit of orange juice or lemon juice will do the trick. Okay, perfect. So next we're gonna brown the butter. So to brown the butter, it's very, very simple. All you're gonna do is add the butter to the pan, turn the heat on to medium, and stir it continuously throughout this entire process until you see a bunch of little tiny brown specks in the pan. As soon as you see those brown specks, you want to take the butter out of the pan and pour it into the apples or a separate bowl. The reason for that is because brown butter goes from brown to burnt very, very quickly, okay? So just make sure you take it out of the pan once it's browned. I have a tutorial video on my YouTube channel already, how to brown butter, and I go a little bit more in depth on how to brown it, and I kind of walk through each stage of the browning process, and I will link that video along with the recipe in the description box below, so go ahead and check that out if you have any questions. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and brown this. Just a little tip for you, when you're browning butter, you wanna make sure you use a light colored pan or stainless steel pan because you need to be able to see the color change occurring. And if you were to use a cast iron or any kind of black pan, you're not gonna see that color change. So a light colored pan is very important. So I'm just going to, again, stir this on medium heat until it melts and I see a bunch of little tiny brown specks at the bottom of the pan, and I will show you what it looks like once that happens. Okay, so we are back, and as you can see here, there are a bunch of little brown specks that are covering the bottom of the pan. That's your cue to cut the heat and now pour it just directly over the apples, and that's it. And you know what, if you don't want to add brown butter to this recipe, you can add melted butter, but you're gonna lose the really kind of aromatic nuttiness that you get from the brown butter, and it just adds such a pleasant depth of flavor. I highly recommend adding it. It really is just an extra maybe 2 minutes of time. It's so easy and you're gonna regret not adding it. So add the brown butter. So, okay, anyway, next up, the rest of this is so simple. Literally all we're gonna do next is add the remaining ingredients into the apples, toss everything together, and that's it. And then we'll talk pie dough. So again, brown sugar, spices, vanilla, a little bit of flour. The flour is gonna help just kind of keep everything together a little bit. And I'm just gonna give it a mix. I think the easiest way to give it a mix is with my hands, clean hands of course, but you can use, of course, a spoon as well, whatever you wanna do. But here goes the salt, the flour. I'm gonna mix this together, clean up, and then we'll continue. Okay, so we are back. Let's talk pie dough. So I am using the pie dough that I just recently posted a recipe tutorial video for. I will link that recipe tutorial video in the description box below along with the recipe. So refer to that video and recipe to find out how I make my pie dough. I have so many recipes coming in the coming weeks, months that use pie dough, and just making it every time on camera is gonna get very monotonous. So I just figured I'd make one really in-depth video of how to make it. Just refer to that video and I'll link it wherever it is needed. So you actually need, to double that recipe, I just have 1/2 of the dough out now. because you have the bottom half of the pie and then the lattice top that we're gonna work on. But it's very, very, very important. It's probably the most important part of making a pie dough, that you keep the pie dough very, very cold. So do not take it out of the refrigerator until you're ready to use it. And the reason for that is because when you're making pie dough, you wanna keep the butter very cold so that the pieces of butter remain intact, so that the pie dough gets really nice and flaky when it bakes in the oven. And the best kind of pie dough is flaky and buttery, and the longer it's at room temperature, the more the butter is gonna melt. So keep it really nice and cold. Like I said, so you'll even notice in a second, once I start rolling this out, that the dough might look kind of hard, and it is just for a little bit, and that's because it's very cold. It's not because this is gonna be a dry dough or anything at all. It's gonna be absolutely perfect. It's a foolproof pie dough recipe, and I know you're gonna love it. So this, I'm just going to flour the top generously and the rolling pin as well, and I'm gonna roll this out. You just wanna roll it out to be slightly larger than your pie pan. So you don't need to take out a ruler or anything like that, is what I'm getting at. So I'm gonna roll this out and then we'll continue. Okay, this looks wonderful. So I have here my pie pan that I just generously buttered. I have it placed on top of a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And the reason it's very important that you put some parchment paper or aluminum foil is because when this bakes in the oven, what's gonna happen is some of the juices from the apples are gonna probably most likely, kind of seep out of the pie, and you don't want to get a mess in your oven. So be sure to not skip that step. So I'm just gonna place the pie dough right on in, like so. And now I'm gonna grab the other half of my pie dough, roll it out, and I'm gonna show you how to make a lattice topping. Okay, this looks wonderful. So to make the lattice topping, what we're gonna do, it's so simple, is just cut strips into the dough. I'm actually gonna turn my dough this way because I kind of rolled it out a little bit more horizontal. And again, if things start getting kind of sticky, add more flour. That is totally fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just cut a bunch of thin strips. If you want to pull out a ruler to make these strips even, by all means go ahead and do that. That's just not how I roll. I am totally fine with things being a little rustic and finding the perfect and the imperfect. So this is just how I'm gonna do it. So I'm just gonna cut all of these strips and then we'll continue. Okay, so now that that's ready to go, what we're gonna do is, I don't have a lot of space here, is first we have to add the apples into the pan. Okay, so I transferred everything around because I want you to be able to see how to make this lattice topping. Okay, so what you're gonna do is take some strips and first just line them vertically down the pie. Okay, now that they're vertical, we're gonna take some more strips and we're gonna lay them horizontal. But what we're gonna do is lay the first side over the first strip, and then you're gonna lay it under the second strip, over, under, over, under, just like that. And then we're gonna repeat that same pattern. So I'm gonna show you again. So this time, we're gonna start under, over, under, over, and under again. And again, if you mess up the lattice pattern, if it's not perfect, it does not matter. It's gonna look beautiful once it bakes and it comes out of the oven. It's gonna taste amazing, and that is all that matters. Okay, so now that this is done, what I'm gonna do is pinch all of the strips together with the dough to seal. Okay, so next, you can do this with a knife or scissors. I'm just gonna trim some of this excess dough. Okay, so I'm just finishing up adding an egg wash to the top of the pie dough. An egg wash is simply 1 egg mixed with about a teaspoon of milk or water, and the egg wash is what's gonna make this pie really nice and toasty and golden brown once it comes out of the oven. So my oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pie is gonna bake for 1 hour. However, at about the 30-35 minute mark, I recommend tinting it just very lightly with some aluminum foil, and that is gonna help prevent the pie dough from not burning in the oven oven while still continuing to bake. So again, bake for 1 hour at about the 35-minute mark. Lightly put some aluminum foil over the top. And once this is done baking, I'm gonna give you a close-up of just how absolutely incredible this apple pie really is. For the full written recipe and instructions, head to my blog, mooneymakesrecipes.com. I'll put the link for that in the description box below. Click on the link, the recipe will come right up, and make this apple pie. I promise you're gonna love it, and let me know what you think because I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.